Alrighty, well, welcome to part two of our attendance project. This shouldn't take long. In the last video, we talked about the stub code and this code that you copy and paste in here, but I didn't really talk much about the includes. And what happens is you can include entire libraries of pre-existing code that's been tested, so you can be much more productive and you don't have to recreate the wheel each time. And there are a bunch of them. There are thousands of classes and libraries and so forth to do different things. So what this is a directive, a compiler directive, tells the compiler when you're compiling this source code, include everything from this library, this header file. IO stream means input output stream. So a lot of what we're going to be doing here is going to be grabbing input, manipulating it, and outputting it to the stream, as they call it. And this is input output manipulation. So there's going to be some commands that we can use that are being pulled in here, and this using statement makes more use of that. I'm just saying standard namespace, we could limit what we're pulling in. There are a lot of different ways to do different things. A couple of things here. We talked about main, and what main is, and we'll get into this in chapters, I believe it's 10 and 11 or 11 and 12. It's 9 and 10. Whoops, sorry about that. This is what's called a function, or in modern object-oriented language, it's called a method. Sometimes in some languages they have legacy terminology that be called a subroutine, a function, a method, a module. Okay, but it's really it's a method. And what this is a value returning method, and it returns a type integer. So actually what's happening is when the operating system is told to load your program, it loads it and then it listens for a return value back from your code. And when it hits this return 0, it returns this 0 as an integer, right? An integer is a whole number, either positive or negative. When it sees that 0 come back to the operating system, when the operating sees that coming back from your program, it says, okay, it's time for me to unload it. It's finished. We're going to unload it from memory. Terminates, and that memory location or those memory locations are freed up for other applications. Now, I won't get into the specifics of methods right now, but just remember that anytime you have a group of code associated with something like an if statement, which later chapters, or a loop, it has to be enclosed in an opening or left pointing curly brace and a closing curly brace. That's real important, and we'll get into that much later, but I'm just showing you that now. Also, whenever you have a line of code and you want it to terminate, you have to use a semicolon. If you don't have a semicolon on it, it's going to throw an error. Okay, hopefully we'll get into that later. But right now, the whole purpose of this program is to display something from the user. All right, and that something is a string. And if you remember from your other programming classes or CIS 150, the way you delineate a string in most languages is to enclose it in an opening double and closing double quotes. All right, so let's use some method from one of these include libraries to output the phrase hello world. That's what all our program is going to do. All right, in this case, we don't have any input, we don't have any processing. All it's going to do is just output something. So I've taken those comments out. And you always tab over to the next level when you're doing code, and you'll see how we do that as we go through. So we're going to use a cout statement, and that's coming from IOStream, I think, IOStream, yeah. And if you'll notice what popped up as soon as I typed in a valid object name, which cout is, it gave me IntelliSense. And what IntelliSense does in Visual Studio is it shows you all the methods and properties available to you from that object, right? And again, we'll get into that a little bit more later, but not too much because that's another class. Well, with cout, you have to pair things with two left pointing chevrons or less than signs. When we use cin, they go the other direction. That's for input. This is outputting to the stream or to the display. So we're telling it to output to the stream, and what we're going to do here is type in what we want to type in. Notice when I open the quotes, Visual Studio closed them for me and put my cursor inside. So it's doing that for you. You have to type the first one. So I'm going to just type hello world. Now it could be anything you want. That's just what I want to type. Okay, now there's something else we're going to use here, and you'll see why in just a minute. So you can put multiple items in a cout statement, not in a cin statement, only one, but in a cout you can do multiple items. So I want to, if I don't put an extra line in there, this system pause is going to put some information right behind my hello world. Let's take a look at that and see what that look like. It's not very attractive actually. All right, so save it. I'm using Control S for that. Now to debug, or to run it in debug mode, which will display what we're doing, you can click under debug and click start debugging, or there's a hotkey, an F5 key, which is what I use. So I'm going to press F5 and it's going to compile. Now you'll always see this whenever you do anything. Always tell it you want to rebuild it, even though it takes a little bit of time. You need the latest compilation, or it won't incorporate your changes that you've just got through making. So let's click yes. And it's compiling and compiling and compiling. There it goes. All right. Now notice what happened. It displayed my text, hello world, exclamation point, but then it put press any key to continue right behind it. That doesn't look very appealing to me, and that's what that pause is going to do. So, but it'll only do it in debug mode. It won't do it in real world. We'll see we're in debug mode here. This is release is what you would use for an actual project. So let's go ahead and put two more chevrons in there and use end L, ENDL. Now what end L means end line, or put an extra line, go to the next line. It's like a carriage return line feed. You could put more than one if you wanted. You could put two. Let's save it, compile it, run it. All right, so there you have it. Now, if I took that pause out of there, it would just flash up and go away, and I'd never be able to see what was going on. Now, let's say I wanted to have more lines here. I could just add another endl, and then I'd have two lines. Again, you always want to compile it. See, I got an extra line there. I won't get into errors. We're going to get into that in the, when we go to chapter 3. I'll show you, breakpoints and all that kind of stuff. All right, so having completed this, let's do a Control S to save everything. And now we want to first go to File, close the solution. You don't want to close the application down here. You just want to close the solution. It leaves Visual Studio open, but it gets rid of your project. It doesn't get rid of it. It just unloads it, basically. And now you could start another project, or now you can close the entire application if you want to. All right, so now that we have this completed, how do we submit it? Well, I'm going to show you if it'll ever let go. Okay. All right, so let's go to content. Oh, goodness, this is so slow. I clicked on the wrong thing. All right. Now let's open up File Explorer. And we want to go to our device. And I got 251 here. Projects. Notice it put that, what I called it, attendance project, under projects. So what you'll have, there is no project 1 and 2 for chapters 1 and 2. We actually start getting grades on project 3. There's no grade for this either, by the way. You get 0 points for it. It's just an attendance activity. So what you want to do is you want to go to projects, and you go to the outermost folder. Now this is what was created by Visual Studio when you told it what to call it. Now don't go inside here and grab that one, because you can start just doing all kind of stuff in here, and if you don't send me what I need, I can't grade it, so we get a 0. All right, this is why you might need to watch this again. So you go to your 251 directory, select projects, double click on that, and then on this outermost directory, right click it. We want to send to compressed zip folder, and you can just use the default name, because what they're going to be is like project 3, project 4, project 5. You're going to name them that. Okay, so you'll be able to find everything you need right in here. Okay, so it did that, and you can just hit enter, and this is what we're going to upload. Now if you don't see these file extensions, you need to go ahead and take a moment and turn that on. So if you go to your View tab in Visual or in File Explorer, you'll see this right here. If it's not checked, it needs to be. So view, file name extensions. That needs to be checked. By default, it's off. I want to be able to see those file extensions, and you'll need to be able to see those too. Especially if you're looking for solution files. The icon looks the same as your C++ file, and it's just easier this way. So there's our file. If I open this up, I'll see everything. There's all my stuff right there. So let's go back to projects, and this is what we want to upload. Okay, so we'll go back to Blackboard and went to content, and now I'm going to go to assignments, CIS 251 assignments. And I'm going to click on online attendance project, the title. Notice you get 0 points for this. That's because it's an attendance project. It's not an actual project. Plus, I showed you how to do everything. If you scroll down here, you'll see Browse My Computer. Click that. Go to your wherever you're working on your devices, whatever they are. It's under Projects, and there it is. See that? Attendance project.zip. That's what you submit. Don't submit a .sln file or your source code. I don't want any of that. I want to be able to run this thing and see if it's working, so I can tell you what to do. All right, so click Open. All right, notice it has attached it. That's only one of 2 steps. You now have to submit it. So first you attach it, then you submit it. You got to do both of those steps or I won't see it and you'll get a 0. All right, so there you go. Hit Submit. Now I'm going to get a red banner up here because I'm not a student, I'm an instructor, and I don't have a grade book or anything. You should get a green banner saying it was successfully submitted. Well, come on. What's it doing? There it goes. It's just real slow. Mine was not saved. Yours should be green, and it should say everything's fine. Now, you've got a grade book over here, My Grades. You can go in there and look and see if something is pending a grade or if it was even submitted. So there's no excuse for you not knowing, because all you have to do is go to My Grades. If I hadn't graded it yet, but you submitted it, it'll have like a yellow circle where the grade is supposed to be with an exclamation point, which says needs grading. So as long as it's there and you can see needs grading, you're fine. But don't come back 2 weeks later and say, well, I thought I submitted it, but I didn't. You'll know, and that's how you'll know. Okay, so there's no question about that. One last thing I want to say, because I think I didn't say this earlier. All my online classes, I send out a Monday morning Monday memo, and it goes out Monday morning at 8 o'clock every Monday of the week that we're working in. It's just a summary and a reminder. I might put additional information in there about what you should be doing that week. You'll get, obviously you got one this first Monday morning, which is next week. I'm working on this ahead of time. And that'll kind of help remind you to go to the course schedule and how to work everything. You can watch those videos as many times as you want. There are 3 so far. And that's it. You're good to go. Once you complete this, you are in compliance and everything should be fine until we get to midterm. And also check your announcements every couple of days in your email. Okay? Have a good one. See you next time.